Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Dychronic here on this Destiny 2 video, and today we're going to be taking a look at my top 10 favorite PvE heavies in Destiny 2. And as always, this is subjective, based on my opinion, the weapons I like to use and the way I like to use them, the activities that I like to use them. You are obviously going to have a different opinion and a different playstyle, and I encourage you to let me know in the comments down below so we can make the best spreadsheet ever next time. Furthermore, I have made a spreadsheet for this video with all the good stuff that you know and love, as well as DPS testing for all the different heavy weapons and special variations of perks for all these heavy weapons as well. And a bit of a caveat here is that I would believe that a lot of these numbers are going to be a little bit off. I've had to do a lot of estimation and skewing over time, different power advantages, stuff like that. It's somewhat off on a couple of these different things, but next season I'll try to do a full refresh, so just keep that in mind. But for the most part, things should be mostly good. Kind of pretty good. And of course, the spreadsheet can still be found at my Discord server, link in the description down below on #SpreadsheetStocks. And the last thing we'll have to do right before we get into it is going to be cute animals on screen right now. There's going to be a lot of people who are going to be skipping this section, and I just want to say thank you for watching this section. And I like cute animals, and hopefully you like them too. I don't like to ask for subs or likes or anything. I don't do that. I like cute animals, and I hope that you do too. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. On screen right now, you can see my spreadsheet. All of its beautiful dark theme, color-coded recommendations, catalyst information, exotic quest locations, for all the goodness, for all the different variations of all the different heavies in the game, exotics and legendaries, as well as, of course, the DPS testing for all the stuff on the right side. And obviously, I don't really do these videos like a lot of other people do. If you want to know what the top 10 are, it's on screen, right? You can see it on the actual spreadsheets. But the reasons why you'd use a certain thing over another thing, why certain archetypes within a type of weapon is better, is going to be important. So we're going to go through each type of weapon, like grenade launcher, rocket launcher, swords, talk about the best archetypes within those, and of course the special exotics. Up first, in the first major category, we have the heavy machine guns. Now, the heavy machine guns get a pretty significant buff this season, around 20% more damage in PvE, just across the board. And there also was a change to Xenophage, lowering the RPM just a little bit, but overall, the heavy machine guns are doing better than they ever have been. Now, that being said, obviously, they're not really DPS hounds. Their DPS is at the bottom of the barrel. However, their full ammo damage is pretty respectful, around 400 to 500,000. Now, from my opinion, outside of Xenophage, the best use of a heavy machine gun is just a higher damage auto rifle or breaking shields of a certain type. I can't tell you how many times in a Grandmaster I'll have, for example, True Prophecy plus Ariana's Vow, and then for the heavy I'll take either an Arc or a Void heavy machine gun like Commemoration or Seven Seraph Saw, just so that I can break Void or Arc shields with that. And anytime I don't have a lot of Arianas, I can use it for DPS as well, or to be able to mow through a lot of different red bars. Now, outside of that, it's really not that powerful, and that may seem like a very small reason to put it in the top 10, but if you're doing Grandmasters, it is extremely helpful to have the right damage to break enemy shields of the right type, and just a slightly better DPS option that you know you'll have ammo for a really long time, which is one of the best parts, is that you have a lot of ammo for a long time. Whereas some other weapons, like grenade launchers, you can use all of your ammo very quickly. And then, of course, there's Xenophage. Pretty impressive, 27,000 DPS, still nearly 500,000 total ammo damage, still an excellent option for certain DPS phases, but there are definitely better options up above. Up in the next category, let's talk about the swords. Now, honestly, I don't see a lot of people using swords nearly as much as we used to. Obviously, we got a number of different nerfs to swords, to Lament, and to the best of the best, but I still think that swords are an excellent option, especially in the right circumstances. Even in a Grandmaster Nightfall, for example, you stunning a barrier champion or any of the champions, you can go up in their face and really lay out a very high amount of DPS while still having a ton of full ammo damage. You can do this a lot of different times, again, as long as you can get a situation where the enemy is not going to be that much of a hazard to you. Another situation is whenever you put a Titan bubble down, like on Lake of Shadows. Grandmaster literally just put him in a bubble and start swinging at him with his sword, and you can't really do much about it because bubble makes you very resistant. Beyond that, my personal favorite swords are going to be the Adaptive Frames, Crown Splitter, and of course the Lament, which Lament is in its own category for a number of reasons, including the fact that it heals you, the fact that it's barrier rounds, the fact that it does more DPS, and of course if you get the right combo with the heavy attack, you do some pretty good burst damage as well. Overall, I don't think swords are nearly as good as they used to be. I do think that Bungie does need to distinguish them at least a little bit more than they have now, probably give them a bit of a damage buff, or maybe just a damage buff against majors or bosses, just to make them uniquely useful for certain situations. I think they are a bit close nowadays. The fact that the Truth and Lament have about the same DPS is a little concerning. And of course, Prospector just has even more, but nobody likes Prospector. Up in the next category, let's talk about the grenade launchers. Now, the grenade launchers are still actually a very, very good option, especially if you can get yourself an Interference 6 with Spike, Full Core, and auto-loading. You got yourself a very powerful legendary grenade launcher. It still does really impressive DPS and a pretty considerable amount of full ammo damage. Likewise, we have Anarchy, which did get nerfed this season, a lot less reserve ammo, down from 26 to 16, and 30% less damage to bosses, which you don't always use Anarchy against bosses, but it is a consideration. So it's no longer the 2 million full ammo damage that it used to be, but it's still 1.2 million and 800,000, probably 900,000 against bosses, which is still much higher than the best Interference 6 output can ever have. So I still think Anarchy is an excellent option for total ammo damage against bosses, against champions, against majors, against anything. It's just really good, dependable full ammo damage, and you can do DPS with this thing while also doing DPS with your special ammo weapon at the same time. On top of it, the fact you can shoot an enemy, go behind a cover, and do damage without seeing your enemy, which is very nice. And one last thing I wanted to talk about with grenade launchers is gonna be how they've actually fallen behind legendary rockets, and I have one very good reason for that. I used to argue before that Interference 6 and grenade launchers were able to be used a bit more piecemeal, considering they had 16 ammo rather than 7 like rocket launchers. However, in certain engagements, when you find an enemy champion, you end up using around 3 to 6 of your ammo as fast as you can, whereas rocket launchers, you usually end up using 1 to 2, which is a smaller percentage of the full reserves, and I often find that I'm out of grenade launchers very quickly, whereas rockets, I end up having ammo for a longer period of time. So in actual use case, I end up very rarely having a lot of ammo in grenade launchers, but I end up having a pretty considerable amount in rockets, which is why these days I'm favoring more towards that. Speaking of which, let's talk about the rocket launchers. First and foremost, I just want to point out pretty much all of the rocket launcher archetypes are almost exactly the same. There are obviously different stats on them. Some have more handling, some have more blast radius, some have a built-in tracking. The precisions, if you don't know, have built-in tracking, which is nice. But when it comes to DPS, they all do the same damage per shot outside of the exotics, and they all have about the same RPM. The biggest difference between these rocket launchers, other than the exotics, is gonna be the perks. Extra damage perks like impact casing on every rocket is really nice. Lasting impression, explosive payload, Vorpal, all incredible damage options, especially explosive light, the new one from this season, doing like 25% more damage just by having an orb from before is very, very powerful. And then finally, extra stuff like auto-loading, clown cartridge, ambitious assassin, impulse cycler, all amazing stuff and really make or break certain rocket launchers, which is why you'll see at number 3, A, B, and C, all different types of rocket launchers. And as a last note on that is that I've started to shy away from lasting impressions. While it has much better DPS and a huge blast radius, I often end up not hitting the target because the rocket will explode too late and then I won't hit the target or it won't save my life. So there's a lot less stopping power with lasting impressions you should keep in mind. And when it comes down to the exotic rocket launchers, they're really not that good. Eyes of Tomorrow still has very, very poor DPS, should be way higher. Wardcliff is still very, very inconsistent, sometimes amazing, sometimes not. Two-Tailed Fox is okay, definitely something you can do, but legendaries are better, and then Deathbringer, again, very inconsistent. You definitely need the Catalyst to do much better with it, and still nowhere near the DPS of a lot of these other options. And then finally, the Truth. Actually, way better DPS than anyone probably thought it could have, but very low total ammo damage. And in the final category, we have the linear fusion rifles and 1000 voices. And one of the biggest reasons why these are so high up on the list is going to be the mod in the artifact called particle deconstruction, which essentially just doubles the damage output of fusion rifles and linear fusion rifles as you hit targets. And some of these things are really way more than they ever should be. For example, the best legendary linear fusion rifle in the game, we have Reed's Regret with firing line, the only linear fusion rifle that can have firing line, which is better than Vorpal. It's actually 5% better than Vorpal. It has around 25,000 DPS and almost 800,000 total ammo damage. You compare that with something like 1K, around 37,000 DPS. If you have particle deconstruction, you can do double the damage and you'll even be higher than that of Prospector. And obviously 1K can also receive the benefit from particle deconstruction, which is a big reason why it's at number 1 this season, might not be at number 1 next season. But here's the thing. Full ammo damage for the 1K is almost half of that of Reed's Regret. And I remember recently I was doing a Master Vogue on Templar, which is basically just boss DPS, and we had the maximum possible output that we can do. We had the Well of Radiance, we had the Bubble, we had Focusing Lens, I had Mask of Bacchus, I was applying the Revenant Hunter thing to the thing with Focusing Lens, while also doing the Revenant Super on it. I was maxing out as much possible damage as I could do. I was using 1k, switching over to an Arc Fusion Rifle after I was done, and I was still doing 20 to 30% less DPS than that of somebody using Reed's Regret with Firing Line. Because as soon as that 12 seconds is up, I'm out of 1k, and I'm stuck to a special ammo fusion rifle, and Reed's Regret very quickly catches up and ends up doing a lot more damage. Now obviously that boss phase is a significant amount of damage, and oftentimes you won't need that much damage to kill a boss. And when it comes down to it, next season probably won't see nearly as much use, but it's still a very good option for full ammo damage, as well as the fact that you can use it at very, very long range will still make it a decent Grandmaster option. And obviously you don't need to have Firing Line, you don't need to have Reed's Regret, which has some of the best PvE perks you can have on a linear fusion rifle. You know, for example, you can do a Tarantula, 21,000 DPS. It's not that far off of 25,000 DPS, it's just not as good. And then obviously there's something like Sleeper Simulant, which I do think needs to be buffed because it's Sleeper Simulant. Why does it have less total ammo damage and less DPS than all of the legendary regular options? And of course, as always, please let me know in the comments down below if you think I made a mistake with my spreadsheets or my order. Please let me know something that I may have missed so I can make the best spreadsheet ever. And if you haven't heard it already, I actually have a giveaway going on right now. Astro A10 headset, Blue Yeti microphone, link in the description down below on how to enter. And of course, a huge thank you to my patrons on Patreon. Truly, and I mean truly, without their help, these spreadsheets really would not be possible. Specifically, a big thank you to Mom and Dad, Luco, Dr. Strange, Kelly, Joe Smith, Monday, Mark West, Raymond Shoney, Panther, Casey Reagan for their support on Patreon. And that's it. Hope you guys did enjoy. My name's Dychronic, and I'll see you guys on the next one.